A very good afternoon and welcome to this hour session. A quick introduction. My name is Shweta Gupta and I'm responsible for the data science education at Digital Vidya. For my own profile, I am a software engineer, a technologist. Of my 20 years of my career, I started with coding C, C++, moved to J2E applications, did product development in IBM, large part of my career. And I was, in my last role there, I was doing solutioning and I was a consultant for the e-commerce at IBM. What are we here for this hour? Let's look at the agenda. This is really an orientation session, which means we're going to just about get introduced to what is this about artificial intelligence, AI, the field of AI, the field of data science. Why is it so important and critical for this decade? And therefore, what is it in for you, for aspirants, to really build your skills and build a career in this field, and how to go about it? And we will close with looking at Digital Vidya offerings and a question answer session. So what I would ask you to do is hold on to your question answers so that you're able to frame them much more accurately and precisely based on the information that we consume in the next 45 minutes or so. As I go on, let me just do a quick voice check. I would ask all of you to use the hand button. Before that, if you can just put your hands down so I can phrase my question. So use the hand button on the GoToWebinar panel to indicate that you can hear me nice and clear. I want you to raise your hand to indicate you can hear me nice and clear. Thank you so much for the folks whose hands have gone up. The others, can you, if you're not able to hear me, let me just type on the chat. Just give me a moment. Okay, thank you everybody. You can put your hands down and we will continue. Right. So I think one of the questions which must be a quiz for a lot of people is, what is it about data today? What is it about artificial intelligence today that says data science is being hailed as such a solid field of work? Right? Why is it being considered that interesting, challenging, and full of opportunities? So let's look at it a little bit. And one of the key reasons for this is the way data stands today. There is a reason why it is being hailed as the new natural resource. And the primary reason is with the way today we are generating data. The amount of data we are generating, the velocity at which we are generating, the forms and types at which we are generating, this is so completely different than ever before. Never before humans have generated so much data. And just like a natural resource, as far as the data is sitting underneath the surface, it has just about that much value. It is only when one is able to mine the data and then is able to transform it and make it such that A, it is consumable for humans, and B, it gives us some value, some wisdom, some information, some way to help us make prescriptions, to make predictions. That is when it really data for value. Now, if we look at the key terminologies which you see today, artificial intelligence. In fact, the scientists, when the first computer science, when the first computers and machines were created, since then, it had been a goal, an aspiration to create machines which were like human. However, it's taken a long time, and even today, in the decade of 2018, our computers are pretty much programmable instructional machines. They require a certain input, they process in a certain instructional order, and they give output. Right? It's all extremely instructional. They are not artificially intelligent. What is the difference? What would we mean when if we expect a machines to be artificially intelligent? Basically, what we are saying is be like human. So when you look at a little baby learning, you will see as we start to teach that child, the child learns through the data, through the information we are giving it. But very quickly, you will see that the child is able to understand from the context, is able to learn from the way information is contained, is able to apply certain rules, create some patterns. And that is the kind of learning which human mind generates. If you want a machines to be like that, that entire field is known as artificial intelligence. And with machines, if there's a large amount of data to help train the machine, then it can get really effective. And that is really the reason, one of the biggest reasons why this decade is most suited to solve more and more challenges in the field of artificial intelligence. Now, one of the subsets of this is really machine learning, because that is the component where the algorithm is really learning from data. It tests from data, it trains from data, and eventually it is ready to face the real world live data coming in. And another subset of that is deep learning, which is based on neural networks. Neural networks is something which is closest to how the human brain works, and the way it creates layers and the way data is processed with high-speed computing and with a large amount of data, we will see very complex problems. For example, being able to naturally converse like a human. Those kind of problems are more suited to be solved with advent of these technologies. And all of this entire field can be contained under what is called the data science. So quickly, if we look at this Venn diagram, a very popular Venn diagram you will see on a lot of websites. It was created in 2013 by Drew Conway, which came out of a brainstorming session in New York. So what really is the field of data science? And it was really about being able to work with data, understand how to acquire data and legally, how to cleanse the data, how to program it accurately. The second important aspect, what is to understand the statistics and draw the right inferences from data, right? Build the correct foundation for that data. And then when one understands the domain knowledge, one is able to like bring this entire thing together to solve problems. So data science life cycle is really about being able to work with data, do analysis, bring out insights, have actions which give back value to the business. Now, hopefully in the last 10 minutes, you should have been able to really understand the definitions of the key words which you've been hearing, right, around artificial intelligence, data science, machine learning, deep learning. Now with that, I want to start giving you a few examples, and let's start with something which you're most familiar with. The reason is I want you to see that statistics is something which is part of our lives. And therefore, this is not something which is only done by deep researchers sitting behind. Of course, they are doing some very complex problems, right? For instance, making a car drive around on a road with everybody else who is human is a very extremely complex challenge to solve, which is around identifying image and the motion and being able to apply machine learning to it. That is something which folks are doing. But in the process, in order to get there, there's a lot of statistics which we all are familiar with. So if you look at any sports, we know we don't just sit down to watch when the match starts. Any sport, right? So if we let's look at the most recent IPL, the excitement, the discussion, everything happens a lot before. And there's a tremendous amount of data statistics which takes place uh, right from being able to analyze how have the team been performing against each other in all the previous series. How is the group dynamics? The field in which they're going to be playing, how suited is that? What is the current bats lineup? What are, what is the chances of the captain pulling it out a big win? What happens with the field? What is the kind of fielding we expect, right? So this whole lot of analysis which happens, and all those charts which you see are based coming out of statisticians who are sitting with all your sports channels and media houses, right? Once the match starts, the next level of excitement and interest builds in, like when the toss, as the toss takes place, based on who wins loss, you immediately start doing prescriptions, right? Prescription is based on what is the past history of, based on who's playing first, who wins the match, or what is the higher probability, right? Of course, many of us may be doing it out of gut, intuition, emotion, but I'm talking about the part which is really done based on data, based on statistics, right? Now, based on this, we tend to start doing prescriptions, and prescription is exactly what, say, a doctor does for you, right? Based on the symptoms, would prescribe a set of medication and say that when you take this set of medication, you will be better, right? So prescription to say that, okay, now you should bat first, or what is the order of batsmen should go in for the match. As the match progresses, every ball is being analyzed, the way it is played, the way it is done, right, the way it is fielded. That is all real-time analysis happening. And based on that, very soon the predictions start to come out, right? So based on how the match is happening, based on a lot of data behind and the statistics from earlier stuff, people start to make predictions that is the outcome of the match. Of course, if you look at elections, you've been very familiar with the dynamics in which over the last decade it has changed. the way the pre-poll votes, the kind of sample sizes, now the influence which happens with so much social media activity. All that has completely transformed the way data is influencing the outcome of the elections, along with helping you to interpret the elections. Now let's move on to some more examples which come from really the giants of social world and the artificial intelligence pioneers. So here's a question for all of you. If you can put your hands down, then I think it will be easier to get the right question. I want to understand how many of you have actively seen and watched the demo Sundar Pichai made on his announcement of Google Duplex. The announcement happened on May 8th, early this month. I'm not just talking about reading the snippets, I'm talking about if you have actually heard the conversation which was demoed, in which the artificial intelligent agent spoke about securing a haircut and securing a table. So can I see the hands go up? Okay, that's really very tiny of a fraction. Okay, thanks. I see more people waking up to my question. So, folks, if you rest of you who haven't been keeping abreast, or you just preoccupied with other things, I would encourage you to go and listen to it, right? Because these are the kind of announcements which demonstrate a big shift in the advancements in artificial intelligence. And one has to understand that it's not only about being able to crack a particular field. It is about being able to show that those advancements, because each of those advancements have a major role to play in many other fields. So for instance, it's been a decade since when the self-driving car work has been happening, and while you still don't see cars driving around, the success which has come through of having those algorithm works have definitely made into other fields. So now continuing to look at some other examples, for instance, in sports, like FIFA uses a lot of data science, a lot of AI and machine learning algorithms for lots of its analysis. One of the ones which I thought I should talk to you all about is a visual tracking technology which it uses to get a very detailed view on a game being played. The kind of passes which are completed, which went well, what is the distance, heat maps around it, and all the detailed analysis. The coaches and trainers, they sit down and they use that data, and they're able to use that to work with their teams and strategize, do detailed post-session analysis, and really also use it to perform outcomes around how fit the player is based on how the game is happening. So very intense analysis, and you can imagine the amount of data which gets captured, and traditionally they just keep sitting there, right? There's no way for anybody to come up with that much detailed analysis until a tool, an advanced machine learning tool, is able to do it for you. Uber, I'm sure all of you have been using some of the other rideshare, one of these brands, Uber or Ola, and Uber, another company which is tremendously using data for its work. And you'll find a lot of different use cases. The one which I thought was very interesting and stood out is, their understanding of the fact that happy drivers translate to happy customer experiences. And therefore, with hundreds of thousands of driver partners around the world, how they really bring out that value. The way they're able to collect that feedback and have the sentiment analyzer parse that data and mine, and being able to surface actually the perceived sentiment, and then do it city wise, region wise, so that the operation teams can gain a much better understanding and take informed decisions and really act on it. Let me take one more example because it's rather, very interesting and very relevant to the youth. Many of you aspirants there is Instagram. So Instagram in last year's bullying survey, it actually reported that it was the platform which was being used for maximum bullying, right? Maximum bullying happened on Instagram. And as an outcome, Instagram was ahead of people like Facebook and Twitter to be able to use machine learning to automatically identify and remove offensive posts. Whereas, you for a long time, Facebook and Twitter expected you to mark it and report it as abusive, right? So while it still has a long way to get its accuracy increase and become closer and closer to a good identification tool, it definitely received praise from the Cyber Bully Prevention Organization, right? And the way it works, being able to identify spam, abuse, being able to automatically eliminate and adhere to the community guideline is another excellent example of an important social play. Natural language processing will continue this decade. It is going to be every business needs to work on with their customers in various ways. And the best way to work with the customers is talk in understand the way humans talk. That is natural language, right? So this field is definitely set to really go strong. So with this set of examples, what I would do, I would jump to the next section. And really, now let's look at the technologies, right? Uh, Many of you would be like, okay, I get it. I've been reading around, I understand the complexities. But when I start to see the technologies, it can be extremely daunting and confusing because there's just so many different technologies. And how does somebody who's entering the field, how do you know where do you start from, right? Which is the right skill to build so that you are able to be productive much more soon, right? Sooner. So these are the questions which are bound to be in your, and this slide is going to be the big answer for it. It's going to be a long narrative. I will spend 10 minutes at least on it. So I want all of you to pay strong, attention to the narration because it will answer most of your questions. And before I do that, let me take a quick poll because it will help me understand my audience today. So the poll is on your screen. It's a very simple question. I'm asking you to identify yourself as in which bracket do you belong to. So very quick response, please. If you can just let me know, select the first one if you come from IT, software, anything around that. Choose the second one if you belong to anything else, right? You're a marketer, sales, operations, finance, trader, supply chain, logistics, right? Commerce, anything else, that's yours for you. Do let me know if you're already a statistician or a data analyst. And if you're a student, please pick up one of the last two to indicate the field, right? So with that simple poll, I'm just going to do a quick 5, 4, 3, 2, and I'm ready to close the poll. Thank you so much. Okay, so I see quite a strong bias today, and that is evident. I think most of the colleges are finishing or just finished their examination. So I see a 35% of student from programming and another 10 from MBA. So that's a strong 45% from there. right? And then I see a reasonable equibalence between 25-25 between, say, the professionals who come from the programming background versus the ones who come from other functional areas. Excellent. So there's something for all of you on this slide. So let's look at it. Um, I'm going to go start from, say, early 1900s. Now, if you look at early 1900, there are very interesting examples of how these statisticians were working with companies in being able to identify. So there's a very popular statistician called Gosset. He was with a wine company in North America, and he was helping identify which barley, which region, what kind of yield, what kind of taste, what is the best thing, right? And the amount of work that individual did yielded in a lot of intellectual property, IPs, patents, and white papers. A lot of interesting work. So one thing which I want you all to re-emphasize to yourself, and I would do that again and again, is please understand that working with data, statistics is the fundamental. And I would say up to even 5 years back, pretty much it was the domain of statisticians. It was always these statisticians who were doing data science, and it was the PhDs in computer science with statistics and very strong math foundation who were doing the artificial intelligence problems. Because without statistics, one would be bluffing their way around data science. So don't do it, right? Remember, statistics is extremely important. Now, as we come around the mid 1900s, you would realize that the statisticians, when they saw that computing has been launched and the computers were being used for solving several of the problems, especially mathematics problems and agri problems, and of course the regular trade, finance, banking stuff, the statisticians wanted to use the power to solve powerful equations, right, so that they can really do their research much faster. And that is when statisticians came together and they created a software called SAS. So for all the computer science folks out there, I'm not talking about SaaS, software as a service. I'm not talking about that SAS. I'm talking about SAS, which stands for Statistical Analysis Software. So this software, which was created in the 60s, in the 1960s, it very quickly got incorporated as a company, and it became one of the biggest software, just like you would see a Oracle or a DB2 for database or a SAP for a ERP. Similarly, SAS became the biggest licensed software for data science, for doing statistical analysis. And it has continued that today, even in 2018, you would see that all the major banks and insurance companies, that is the BFSI industry and the healthcare company doing clinical analysis, these domains and fields, they all use SAS. SAS clearly being one of the oldest software, it has extensive support, maintenance. It has grown with the way the technology has grown. It has governance, data security, all the aspects which a matured software needs to have, right? And that has kept SAS to be the most popular used software by these biggies. Now, while SAS was all that popular and being used by all the biggies, it was around the end 1900s when the statisticians again, yes, sorry to say that, right, the statisticians again, they realized that they didn't have any tool to work without having to spend a lot of money, right? And you can imagine a 5 people, 10 people, 50 people, 100 people team, researchers, academia, they were not going to get access to SAS expensive software. So they needed something in the open source platform, and they decided to write a tool only to do statistics. And that is where what they created, they called it simply a single letter R. Right, so everybody out there, please note, R is a tool, a language to do statistics. It is not a software programming language. It is a statistical language. And very clearly, it stood out very, very strong that for the last 15 years, other than that, other than SAS, all the work which was happening, the fastest work which was being happening in machine learning, very agile, open source, large community, was all happening in R. Data statisticians, the statisticians, they love R as a tool. Right? So this is how the statistics industry worked over the last many, many decades. Now things started to change. So let's look one aspect of it. With the computer and digitization and every function owning data, and now I'm talking to the good 25% in the audience who come from marketing, sales, operation, trade, finance. You all are the ones who own data. And as Microsoft Office became really, really popular, we know that Excel became clearly stood out as one of the tools which is most used by every layer of organization, whether you're a home organization, right? You have a small office, you have a medium office, you have a large office, you're an extremely, very, very large organization, doesn't matter. You are going to be using Microsoft Excel. You are going to have data in there. Now, whether you analyze it effectively or you use it minimal is really based on the kind of skills you carry. However, I must iterate to you that Microsoft Excel is an extremely powerful engine, and especially with add-ons and more software like Power BI visualization, it makes an extremely powerful tool. And I will show you one of the surveys which touted it as the topmost tool being used. Right? So while the statisticians were busy with SAS and R, one could really see the software industry, which had a whole lot of data for their clients. Right? All the databases, data warehouses, data lakes, were with the software folks, and there was obviously a very open space where you can do a lot of work with data. However, software folks did not have two things. What is that? Right on, right? One is statistics. Software engineers like me and all my colleagues out there, most of us haven't done statistics since our undergraduates. And the second thing is we didn't have a familiar programming language which did easily a lot of data science. C, C++, Java, they weren't really the strongest, coolest data science languages. So what needed to be done is two things, and which has really started to change in the last 2 years. It took a decade, but it is the last 2 years which really flipped it to an extent that suddenly Python programming, which is a general purpose programming language. It has web development, it's used for scripting, it is used pretty much for everything. Very clean, simple programming language. It is open source, and some folks got together and they started to work on the numeric package, the NumPy package, the SciPy package. They worked on a visualization kit, and then the scikit-learn happened, that is the machine learning library. With all this coming together, Python started to pick up as one of a very strong contending player for data science. And then what happened was deep learning libraries like PyTorch, right? Several of them came up, making Python suddenly the most preferred for a lot of new work which is happening in data science. Right? And now let me look at the rightmost box, which you see, it's all about big data there. So if, when people to ask what is big data different, it's still data, it still requires all your fundamentals of data science. The difference is really in the technologies. your own single machines, your limited storage, limited commuting is not enough because data is so humongous and huge. You can imagine for Twitter or for Facebook or Instagram to crunch and process that amount of data on every hour to hour basis and to put up the right level of recommendation, trend line, blah blah blah. It requires very fast processing. And this need arose to a set of technologies that specialized to work and handle big data. So Hadoop framework came up. It came up with its own distributed file system called HDFS. It came up with its MapReduce programming, which was so complex that people could really never get anything out of it. Then came some simplification, Pick came, and Hive. So Hive is like, if you know your SQL, you can pretty much, it's very SQL-like, and you can do a lot of work on larger databases. Then Apache Spark came in because you needed to work with a lot of real-time data. So for instance, Apache Spark has its own machine learning library, Spark ML. So if some software engineer will to say that, okay, should I just pick up Spark first, right, without learning data science fundamentals, fair enough, you'll pick it up, you'll use the library methods, but you'll be bluffing. You won't know what you're doing. You will be consuming this machine learning method, but you won't know which one to use, what you to do, how to build on accuracy, because you don't have the data science fundamentals. So one must understand that using tool and technology in library has to be a method in a way. However, your primary foundation of data science must be built very well. Okay, so as promised, I have spent 10 minutes on this slide, and I really hope you have got a good bit of message from here. Let me reiterate a couple of things. As I said, O'Reilly, which is a technology publishing firm, it conducted a data science survey last year. It published the results, 2017. I'm not talking about old data, right? This is new data from 2017. You can go do a search, O'Reilly data science survey, right? And as part of the survey, it asked a lot of questions. And one of this question was, which tool do you use to do your analytics work? And you can very clearly see that on top of it is Microsoft Excel. Close to 70% people said they use Microsoft Excel, right? That is the power for all of you. Python, as I said, in the last few years, it just suddenly flipped. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with Kaggle, but I will show you that in a bit. Basically, Kaggle is a very, it is for data scientists what, say, a Stack Overflow is for developers, or even much more than that. Because what Kaggle does, it has a lot of different data sets around different domains. A lot of companies come in through your challenges, and data scientists, they really collaborate. They collaborate extremely effectively in solving those problems, right? So a survey was conducted where about 16,000 people responded, and one of the questions asked was, what language would you recommend new data scientists to learn first? And very clearly you can see on this chart, it is Python. Right. So while I've been talking about a lot of things and a lot of technologies, maybe it would be a good idea to just look at something. And I had kept a Kaggle notebook open for you. So as I said, Kaggle is an open source platform for all data scientists to come together. And there are a lot of different interesting data sets kept here, whether it is some companies' e-commerce inventory, or it is Google's challenge around finding some top keywords, all kind of different challenges. Some healthcare company would put up its data. So one of the interesting data sets is, of course, the IPL data set. I think somebody still has to come and upload the 2018 data. And, if you look at it, based on the data, you can create your what is popularly known as a kernel in Kaggle. And if you look at somebody's analysis of IPL, they've used different methods and tools. So they've used a visualization engine. And then as you go down, they've done a lot of different analysis, like the bowler analysis. So this very interesting analysis can be done using a language like Python, and then you can go on to do predictions by using machine learning graphs, right? And IPL analysis, right now I don't have that sheet open, but Microsoft Excel is an extremely powerful way to do most of this level of IPL analysis and charting, and that is what is used by a lot of statisticians who are not programmers. So jumping back to our slide. Okay, so we are 40 minutes into the session, and what I would like you to do is, if you can please give me some it's like a very simple 2-minute survey. If you can just open up this form, you can just click on the link. The link is a bit.ly link, http://bit.ly/dv for digital vidya, ds for data science, feedback, dv, ds, feedback. I posted it on the chat window. If you can just open it up and spend half a minute to let me know how useful is this session as a orientation, right, to really get you started. Okay, so while you're giving me the feedback, let's move on. So in the last 40 minutes, we have looked at what is this field of artificial intelligence, why is it really, really so relevant today. We looked at the technologies and we looked at its history, evolution, and why which technology, right? What are those technologies which you should be really focusing on, depending whether you're a functional role, you work with data and you want to use Excel, or whether you're really, really looking at doing extensive programming and doing machine learning, right? You have very clear two defined roles. I've called out repeatedly statisticians were the fellows who were doing data science, and they continue, and therefore you must make sure that you do not fake it, right? You really, really build your statistics. It is used pretty much in every phase of your data science. Now with that, let's do a quick summary on what are the skills that are needed. So statistics, you need one tool and you need the domain knowledge. So for instance, instead of using, say, a sports like cricket as an example, if I was using golf and if I was using terminologies which are not popularly familiar with all of us, we will find it much harder to follow that even as example, let alone being able to figure out what kind of problems to solve in that domain. To be able to work and solve problems of a supply chain, one must understand the challenges there. One must understand the challenges of telecom industry to be able to help with the business gain some value, right? Now, clearly, if we want to work on very interesting, challenging problems, this is the career. You can pretty much look at any industry today. And just, yesterday, I published a very interesting article having spoken to 3 startups who are doing who are working in the agro-tech, agriculture space using data science. And this is something which is being used in every field, from serious stuff like agriculture to fun stuff like gaming and everything in between, whether it is your food industry as Zomato, whether it is your travel industry, whether it is obviously your banking, insurance, right, clinical, whether you're trading, your finance, your sports, every field, whether it is fashion, everywhere you're using data science. So what have we done to really address and help be that bridge, be that gate between the fact that industry is looking for these skills and there are data aspirants like you who are looking to make it, right? So we've got 2 programs. One is called Analytic Techniques using Excel and Power BI. It includes SQL, statistics. It's a 15-session class, very interesting, and The projects are very interesting, be an IPL statistician, be a credit card risk assessment, right? A risk analyst, do a risk assessment. So these are the interesting problems you solve. Data science using Python is 18 sessions. You start with basics, you very quickly move to data manipulation, visualization, stats, ML. Your capstone projects focus on A on healthcare, B on natural language processing. The deal with Digital Vidya is, we very firmly believe that becoming your journey to being a data analyst, a data scientist is just like learning a sports or an instrument. For instance, you will not watch 40 hours of lecture playing somebody playing piano and at the end of it say, oh, I'm a pianist, right? You have to play piano to be able to learn how to play piano. Very similarly, we're very, very focused on making sure that you know how to explore, work with data, apply your techniques, do data science hands-on. So while you will have 3 hours of instructor-led sessions where it is interactive, you learn a lot from your instructor, you're able to ask questions. Beyond that, the whole week you have availability of the entire recording so that you can refresh your topics. You have a vibrant question answer forum where you ask questions, where you respond so that you learn, you practice, you do a quiz, you do an assignment, so that by the time you're ready to learn the next topic, you're really solidified your learning, right? Our program coordinator team works with you very closely so that they keep you encouraged. They your assignments, they receive individual feedback. You are a lifetime member, so every time we do a refresh, every time we do a competition, we reach out to all our past students so that you're part of this vibrant community who is learning continuously. So these are the upcoming course dates. The 10th June, that's the batch is mostly full. There are very few seats remaining, so only if there's some. I think especially for students, there are some seats remaining. So students, since the examination just got over, we have kept some open seats for you. So make sure you leverage them as soon as possible. For the professionals, we have offered a fast track batch, which means you will be learning Saturdays and Sundays, and the early bird offer is on that. Analytic techniques, or you is just going to close the early bird offer. It is only till tomorrow, so don't miss that. Don't miss that offer, right? Because the next batch date is still to be announced. So this is something which you must leverage. So what we are going to do, jump is into your questions. Now is the time. My request to you is please phrase your questions as completely as you can, because the more information you give me in your question, the more accurately I can attempt to answer it, right? Other than that, you must understand that we do have one-to-one counselors who help work through your profile, your context, help brainstorm with you, because it is a career decision for a lot of you, or it's an upskilling decision for a lot of you, which is effort taking, right? We're expecting a lot of involved and engaged learning. So feel free to have that discussion. If you need to reach out to me, you can, let the counselor know, and I also do one-to-one sessions. So make sure you leverage all the opportunities with Digital Vidya. My email ID is shweta.gupta@digitalvidya.com. So I'm going to jump in the questions, so please type them down. And while you're doing that, you can also respond to my next quick poll on, based on everything you've heard so far, which is a specialization that you are looking to make. Okay, so now I'm coming to your questions. Question from Dolan: why data science is so hot in the market? Dolan, I don't see the time of the question, but I hope by now it is clear, because I did emphasize on that. Feel free to be more specific, if you still have queries, right? So you can rephrase that question for me. Thank you. Aman says, I'm not satisfied. Aman, as I said, it's always helpful when you make full phrases data. I do not understand what you're not satisfied with. So if you can phrase and ask me a question, I would attempt my best to answer it for you. Johnny said, should we know about C++ language? Johnny, no, you're not expected to start your programming career with C++ to get to data science. As far as you're able to start with Python, and if you are not familiar with any programming language at all, do the basics programming course. We do have that as a offer. So make sure you start doing it right from today so that you're geared up to really, really learn data science. Kiran asks, I'm working as AVP for managing customer service sales call center. We generally do Excel data analytics. Absolutely, Kiran, I'm happy to note that because that's what I would expect. Please feel free to give me feedback based on the curriculum, how well it covers the kind of expectation you have from the team to deliver on analytics. Harsh asks, is it worth doing MBA for switching to data analytics? Harsh, MBA will help you understand business. You will, so you'll be learning two different skills. So once you do your MBA, you will still need to learn tools and techniques to actually work with data, right? However, with data analytics, you may not necessarily learn a whole lot about businesses themselves, right? So I wouldn't say these are these are skills which are in progress. They will complement each other very well. Kathivaran asks, will you teach deep learning? Kathivaran, deep learning is a separate course which is under development. We do not cover because in 18 sessions, there's a lot of data science concepts to be learned. And it's completely unfair, to take so many topics and just not being able to cover even the surface of them. So deep learning is not part of the data science using Python course. Swati says, great session. Thank you so much, Swati. I want to start my career in data analytics as a fresher, but I only know C and C++, so is this course for me also? Absolutely, Swati. If you already know one programming language, what I would do is, right away, especially for the students, we have a separate student counseling team, talk to them. And we have a basic Python programming course, is Jupyter Notebook. It's way exciting. You'll be able to you should be able to do it in a week, and then you'll be ready to, very well, at a good pace, learn your data science. Python will not come in your way, especially if you, very quickly do the Python basics course. Kiran asks, want to know which course is suitable for me and how different it will be. So Kiran, what I would want you to do is I would want you to look at the analytic techniques using Excel and Power BI, the brochure, the curriculum, and I would need you to tell me that what percentage of it do you already apply. I mean, I have discussed quite deeply with people, and a lot of times we have found that people are only really using 10 to 15% of the skill and capability which can be used, which is part of that curriculum. So that discussion will really help me talk to you. So Kiran, what I would ask you to really have a more one-to-one discussion so that we can look at elaborately what skills you and your team already carries and what is it that will really value add to what you want to do. Shidam asks, having an admit in the top 10 B schools in India, is it better to join it and do analytics parallelly or do masters in data science and do MBA 5 to 7 years? Oh, Shira, that's a tough question. Right? So there's a lot of interesting way to approach, right? I mean, there was a time, and there is a time, a lot of business these schools, they prefer people having worked a little bit, having done a few things, and then come to MBA because they feel that, that there is a certain school which says that then being able to learn specific techniques of being able to handle different aspects of business is much more easier to learn. So there is one school. which says that. But there is other where, you know, most people just finish, a lot of people who do graduation and they join these schools. So, you know, I won't really venture to make a call right now to you, especially in a very limited time. Maybe in a more one-to-one format, we can discuss a little more, right? So now the other question is, when to do analytics, right? I think that is something irrespective, right? Because if you're doing an MBA program or you're starting to work, in either case, the techniques and the skills needed to work in data is going to be extremely important. You will see that, uh, you know, your own job, how effectively you can do it, is only done best when you are able to deal with data. Because today's businesses are all about data. Otherwise, you're just floundering your, you know, resource, effort, time, money, everything. So that would be my answer, Shira. Marias, I've already completed an intermediate course in Python programming. Can I get a waiver? Murray, Python programming or data science? So I'm not sure what you're talking about, but we already have, you know, a lot of ways in which you can avail discounts and waivers, right? So do talk to our counselor so that we can help you with what, you know, whatever we can. Swati, you're welcome. Mari, you have another question. What is the most valued certificate in the field of data analytics, data science? Mari, interestingly, there was no common data science certificate until now because none of the big worldwide companies were doing it. You know, for instance, in big data, Cloudera has a certification, Databricks has a certification, but data science it didn't have so. Very recently, Google has started its own certification and launched, but that is not something which is recognized in any big way. The biggest recognition is that once you have built your skills, the kind of profile you will say on Kaggle, right? That is the applied data science, which is really, really valued. Vishnu has a question. You say great session. Thank you, Vishnu. Is it completely technical? I'm from science background but worked in a BPO. Will this course really help my career? So Vishnu, working with data, especially using Excel, that is something which I can't imagine any role which can do because, you know, depending upon, I don't know what kind of field you are, what kind of business processing you're doing as part of your role. But, you know, whatever you're doing for the client, I'm sure it is based on data. Now, at this point, are you leveraging that data or are you just, you know, going about it in whichever fashion it comes, or are you able to do good analysis? These are the questions which you need to ask yourself and maybe discuss with us. And then we can really tell you what kind of value it will add. Personally, I can't imagine any role today because there's no role, no function which is sans data, right? We all are working with data. So I cannot imagine a function where somebody can do well without being able to be smart about knowing how to leverage it, right? Rahul asked, Python is free. Why are you charging so much fees? Oh, Rahul, absolutely, Python is free. We are not charging for the Python software at all. The fees is because the instructor is going to come spend 3 hours with you week after week in actually teaching you applied data science. And we are helping you do assignments in a structured way. So I don't know why did you think we are charging for the Python license. We are not. It is for enabling teaching. That is what the fees is for. Samran asks, will Digital Vidya give any tuition on Tableau? Oh, yes. Thanks, Samran, for asking that question. Tableau, which is a great visualization tool. It's one of the leader tools, though it's extremely expensive. We do help you do a quick introduction. It is instructor-led and extremely valuable. Instructor from the industry takes that for us so that you get introduced to it. You use a trial version on your system to do it. There are about 25 to 30 visualization tools in this world, and Tableau is one of them. But you don't, just because you've learned Tableau, don't expect that wherever you go, any company will be using Tableau, right? The good thing is if you learn one or two good visualization tools, because you have understood all the concepts, you will be pretty much able to adopt to any other tool. And that is the purpose with which you should learn a visualization, because the tool license will vary from company to company, project to project. Harsh asked, are bootcamps suitable for professionals with work in IT to switch to data analytics? Harsh, actually, any learning channel is suitable. It all depends upon how one wants to consume it, right? Typically, boot camps or workshops are like, done in a very, very abridged way, a day, 2, 3, and you told a lot of things, and then learning is really up to you. You have to sit down and do it, right? So if that format works for you, it is suitable. The other thing is, our format, which is extremely structured and very, very engaged and involved. You learn something, you do assignment, you move on to next week, you spend that time, then you start sharpening your skills, right? You start practicing in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of engaged learning involved. So what I would say, Harsh, it's really up to you, the kind of learning you want to consume. Samran, another question, does Digital provide any certification? Samran, absolutely yes. Digital Vidya, we have our own certification. It's called Digital Vidya certification, and then we do have a government-based skills certification. Aman says, session is not much clear to me, so it is take more time to familiar with the course. I got it, Aman. So can you ask your specific questions? I think that will really help. So if you can kind of be specific about what is not clear to me, what topic is not clear to me, what do you want more clarity? And I'm sure what will be helpful for you to do a one-to-one discussion with our counselor, and your takeaways can be better and absolutely fair. The same, everybody comes from different background and profiles, and everybody has different pace, and we respect that. So feel free to have a one-to-one discussion. Someone asked, how data analytics different from data science? Well, these are pretty much words which are used interchangeably in the industry. Some people refer to data analytics as the more exploratory part, and data science is the most machine learning part. Some people use it, when you start early in your career, you're a data analyst, but as you fill the all three Venn diagram circles, you know the domain, you know your machine learning, you know your statistics, you know your tool, and you are a well-rounded data science. So that's pretty much it. SP has a question. I teach retailing to MBA student. What should I do to teach retail analytics? Oh, absolutely. I would say analytic techniques using Excel and Power BI. That will give you a very strong set of tools, and then you can use that to build your own curriculum, which will be focused around a few examples on retail analytics. So feel free to talk to my team or to me one-to-one, and we can definitely elaborate more on this. Ankita says, which course would you suggest for a complete newbie? Ankita, so if the newbie is a programmer, definitely go for data science using Python. If newbie is looking to work in a functional role, right, like a marketer, sales, digital marketer, finance, trader, supply chain, commerce, retail, any of these fields, do analytic techniques using Excel and Power BI. SP has does MBA students have a career in analytics by taking up retail and marketing retail analytics course? Definitely, every retail company today, from store retailers to the e-commerce retailers to pretty much any area of thing, they will have a team of um, data analyst teams, business analytic teams, right from doing everything from doing competitor analysis, inventory analysis, where to open their next store or where to spend their marketing fund, which customers to reach out to, where to spend their, what kind of discounts to offer. All those decisions are expected to be made out of database decisions. So the answer is very big yes. Johnny has a question. I'm a BCom graduate, so will this course be helpful in my career? Johnny, yes. So you need to discuss a little bit about what you expect to do after your BCom. What are you pursuing? Which kind of role, which kind of career are you building? But as I said, I personally feel that in today's world, when everything is driven by data, whichever role and career do, this will be very critical. Harsh says, is it worth preparing for data analytics full time after quitting your job or alongside it? Um, well, I would say that most likely alongside is very fruitful, because on your job you can start doing a lot of work and applying it. Um, if you decide to quit it and do a program, you're most likely to join like a huge 1 year, 2 year PG kind of course, which will value 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs, 4 like 5 lakhs, right? That kind of money. So one has to know, yeah, the time you spent, a couple of years, invest that much money. It will, and versus you're learning, you're applying. So it's kind of that decision to be made. I don't think there is a very uh, black or white answer. It's kind of gray, Harsh. Mari says your session is well articulated and you're well informed with authority over subject as well. Thank you. You're most welcome, Mari. That's a wonderful compliment to receive. SP says, how many hours of session is required for marketing analytics course for MBA students? Will placement assistance be given after the course? So SP, we have a foundation course which runs horizontal, right? Whether it is for marketing or whether digital marketing, whether sales, whether trading, finance, whether sports, with statistician, right? Irrespective of the vertical, you're able to learn the right skills so that you can apply to your field, right? And that is around 15 weeks, because it includes SQL, statistics, Power BI, and your advanced Excel, along with introduction to VBA macros, and there is a Tableau, right? All that is there, 15 weeks plus 3 weeks for Tableau. So that is the kind of program you have. We have a placement support team which helps people, yes. Johnny, I answered your question. Nitish says, will we be able to access deep neural network materials once you develop them, since we won't be joining again for this particular course? Nitish, deep neural network will not be part of this course. It will be offered as a separate course. Samran says, can I ask you technical questions via your email ID? Samran, absolutely yes. It is SHWETA. Let me just actually show on the screen so that it's easy for you to type it. Okay, that is the email ID on my screen. Okay, I don't see any other question coming in. I will close the session now. I wish you all the very best in your journey of data science. Take care. Have fun. Bye-bye.